Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. A lot of fellas either celebrating homecoming or on the road trip. They declaring they're on assignment, but I'm not sure. Something just ain't right, Josh, AD. Something ain't right. I don't know about this. These folks getting me right. I'll have to teach them, man. That's all right. I know what I do. I'm a doctor pay. That's how you get ready. These folks get them right. You doctor pay.
Give me F, Doc. Just give me F.
Yeah, F squared. F squared. You know, F squared. I like to mess up the transcript. If you're going to go out, I'm going to be like, all right, we're going to make sure you understand what this looks like. F squared in your life. That changes it all. Midterm 2 coming up. Grades due twos. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what you get on that grade book. Josh was a tough one this morning. Let's square it up, square it in the face. Yeah. I know if you like me, those type of games, you don't even sleep right. You can't sleep right.
Nah, Doc. You know, and I'm one of those who you know, I look to give horse in the face. I take the bitter like I take the sweet.
I love it.
Love
it. That's real.
Yeah, this one hurt. You know, but kudos to South Carolina State, man. For whatever reason, man, this is their formula, man. And if we never really took the time to really recognize and realize their formula, everybody in the country, everybody in the MEAC, everybody across the HBCU landscape should take a second to just look in awe of this South Carolina State kind of formula. You play a very, very tough out-of-conference schedule. I'm talking about you're going to play against FBS schools. You're going to get your head beat in. You're going to play against some FCS schools that are in other conferences. You're going to possibly get your head beat in. You're going to play a little tune-up game before you get to conference to get your confidence up. And then as soon as you get to conference, you're going to play your most consistent ball that you've played all season long, just so you're in the position to win the conference. And so kudos to Coach Pugh, Coach Buddy Pugh, and that staff and that athletic department and that team, man. You know, I'm going to go in a little later on, just if Doc will allow me, just to kind of break down what happened. If I could get 5 minutes to break down what happened in that game and what I saw, just from my coach's lens, and I'm going to take my North Carolina Central lens off and talk about it from my coach's lens and from my eyes, you know, from playing ball and coaching this game as well. But again, man, I cannot take anything away from that South Carolina State squad. Can't take anything away from our guys as well, man. They fought all the way to the end. We just came up short in this game, and we'll get a chance next week to really kind of redeem ourselves up in Delaware State.
Yes, you will get a chance to talk a little deeper in it. We expect you to go in on that game. We'll do that in the third segment when we take a review of the major division games, and that one was one of the major division games of the week, so we'll get a chance to really break it down. And so I look forward to getting a coaching perspective. I'm not sure if people have really realized this. Obviously, we call you and BJ Jones the guru, and I think he's having a little homecoming layover a little bit, but he may be able to join us later in the show. But both of you all, as people may or may not know, obviously played the game. You played it for HBCU, played it for significant programs in HBCU. You also had the added addition that you stuck around a little bit and had a chance to coach the game.
Yes, sir.
One on offense, one on defense. And so the perspectives that you provide are just not from those like others that did an analysis. And AD Drew, I'll bring you in this, from somebody that's coached in terms of basketball and also did some refereeing. So I want people to understand when we bring together on Sunday, it really is to break down things and provide you perspective that you can't quite get anywhere else. When folks that have attended HBCUs, coached at HBCUs, right? in different perspectives and bring you some unique perspectives of the game in general that you can get when you watch some big time programs that talk about bringing in these ex-athletes to do analysts of the game and things of that nature. So I thought it was fascinating when you talk about bringing up the fact that this model, one of the other things I kind of laugh is you hear this from Alabama A&M's coach, Maynard, who talks about they don't pay me to win those games. They pay me to win conference games.
That's right.
And obviously he hasn't quite hit the pinnacle in his conference games other than what he did in the spring of 2022. Let me put that out there because he won the conference championship and the national championship in regards to that. In a lot of ways, that's the focus point. And it's going to be interesting to see can North Carolina Central, if South Carolina State doesn't fall, can they still put themselves for that secondary prize, which is the playoffs, which will be interesting if they can finish out the season, kind of in that 9-2 range. They should at least have an argument in terms of still having that New Hampshire victory on the table, which is significant, and to see what Campbell does a little later. How can they mitigate that loss in terms of Campbell continues to kind of play well? And they have a big one against North Carolina, which we'll talk about in the fourth quarter. Let me go to you, AD Drew. Let me bring up the cigar for you in regards. Now, fam, you didn't play, but Tuskegee played.
Thank God they didn't play.
They got a big win, which was a top 10 mid-major matchup. We talked about this a little bit on Wednesday, Joshua, in terms of HBCU Nightly about how big this game was. Tuskegee came out of it. So, cigars to you. Prairie View did what you're supposed to do to an 0-6 Lamar team, beat them to death, make them look bad, and people question how bad they are. No, Prairie View is good, maybe not great, but they're good, and they did what a good team does to a bad team. Leave it right there for one. Follow up that a little bit before I go and give you a couple of minutes, AD Drew, to talk about the Tuskegee matchup and big win that sets them up for another big game. I love when we go down the stretch and we get these top 10 type matchups or these divisional matchups that have everything on the line. Because when you talk about that, you also had the fact that the SWAC had two non-conference FCS, historically white college universities win out of the SWAC yesterday. That's for the season, which is a significant move for a conference for over the last 10 years. I didn't get a lot of those wins. The SWAC is 3-1 against the Southland, if I'm adding all those wins and losses up. They have beaten, at this moment now, they have beaten the first place team in the MEAC, the first place team in the OVC, and the first place team in the Big South. We'll see if it plays out that way, but I think that's significant statements. On the other hand, they have a tough record against the WAC, but outside of that, they played and performed pretty well in terms of the non-conference schedule, which is something that hasn't been done in a while for the SWAC conference. Trending in the right direction, that's for sure. But let's get back to AD Drew in terms of give some mid-major some love in terms of Tuskegee a little bit. What were your thoughts in terms of coming up Saturday, big games? I'm calling it Upset Saturday. Upset Saturday took place in terms of the ranking. North Carolina Central, previous ranked number 2, they go down. Alcorn State, previous ranked number 7, they go down to Texas Southern. And we'll get into some of these matchups in the second half, but just kind of setting the stage for what we will talk about the rest of the show. You saw that. You had Delaware State. They were ranked 4 in my poll. They went down on the road. Howard homecoming. We have to take back a little bit of our dumpster juice. Howard says, not so fast. Clean that up down a little bit. Maybe later, but right now, they are the king of the hill of the Mecca Castle in terms of their own throne and protecting the fort. First game they had at home. Imagine if they kind of get away from that South Carolina State schedule. Another one to think about, another program that does that.
First homecoming win in a long time, too.
Yep, good point. We did discuss that on nightly, HBCU Nightly on Wednesday. AD Drew, your thoughts?
Talk about the mid majors, the Division IIs, and the NAIAs. You had Virginia Union, Benedict, Kentucky State, Fayetteville State pretty much came in, took care of business, took care of it early against their opponents. You had a Tuskegee and Albany State who struggled and just and basically got out with a dub. And then you've got that one over there, the left out one that we all forget, Langston, who came back against another top 25 opponent and went on ahead and secured a victory to
that was a big one. Good call
That's
out.
big.
in the NAIA race. But Josh,
That was a top 20 team that they beat two in the NAIA poll ranking.
Yes, I knew they were top 25. They couldn't remember exactly what.
I think they were like 17. But go ahead.
But Josh, I want to go back to your Delaware State argument for just a brief moment about them getting to the playoffs. The thing that scares me about Delaware State,
North Carolina Central, not Dale State. Dale State don't have a chance in the world to make it.
And I was moving ahead. I was moving ahead of myself because I'm gonna relate this to Delaware State. So I was moving ahead of myself. North Carolina Central, they've got that one game against Lynchburg that's going to get thrown out when people look at it.
Absolutely.
As far as them getting into the playoffs. And I bring that up because the common opponent that Dale State had is Virginia Lynchburg. You talk about that central model, that South Carolina State model. Look at the Dale State model and what that has to do. Inconsistent. You've got a Division II. You've got a NCCAA in Lynchburg. You've played Robert Boys and beat Robert Boys, who was one of the lowest ranked teams in FCS. So when you go up against a person like a Delaware, you get thrashed. Bareback, you get thrashed. You come out, you beat Norfolk, who unfortunately may be at the bottom of the BAC conference to give yourself what you think is a confidence, and then you get the inconsistency and go into Howard on the game you really should win. You on paper you have the better team. Not only do you lose, but you lose to them on homecoming, and they dominated this game.
Start to finish.
You didn't lose on the last second field goal or a Hail Mary. You lost from the moment that ball was kicked off. So, you talk about that South Carolina State model. The anti-South Carolina State is Delaware State, who's been fool's gold for everybody this year.
And Drew, just real quick, man, to that point, right? Like if you look at North Carolina Central and you're looking for a model as to how to be able to get an at-large bid, you look at that FAMU model last year. Both FAMU and North Carolina Central are below 90 in strength of schedule. Those strength of schedule is not included. For those who are watching the show, strength of schedule is not included in the selection committee's criteria for when they're choosing an at-large bid. They do not consider strength of schedule. They look at how you performed against the programs that you played against, what's your final record, and where you finished that in the conference. If you're one loss in conference instead of the team that won the conference, then great. You're in a great position. That was FAMU's situation last year. FAMU lost to Jackson State. Jackson State goes to the Celebration Bowl, which is a non-selection committee concept as it pertains to when they're choosing schools. So when you look at that, we have a win against the team who's tied for first in the Big South, which is North Carolina A&T. We have a loss against the other team that's tied for first in the Big South, which is Campbell. But we have a win against a team who beat Elon yesterday. It is ahead in the conference of the CIAA. That is going to be a huge, huge difference. When you look at FAMU's model last year, FAMU had a great stretch of wins. They didn't lose another game after they lost to Jackson State. For us, it's going to be the fact that we won a really, really big game at the beginning of the season, and they're going to have to take that into context because New Hampshire is going to be in the top 19 this week in the polls, and we have a W against them. And if we run the table, significant wins against the rest of our schedule, we should be able to get in. But to that great point, A.D. Drew, the antithesis of the South Carolina State model, the complete antonym of the South Carolina State model is the Delaware State model.
Hey, two quick things before we get out.
Let's get into this break so we get in there. But both of your points are right on it. I also tell people be careful. Part of the formula for the FCS playoffs, and you see this real clear in terms of Division II playoffs, the way they set it up, is you also have to look at what other teams are doing. And so we always focus about what team is and where they are. So you also got to find out, who's playing themselves out because of late losses in the season, which may help a team, which obviously, in my opinion, helped FAMU a lot last year is what other teams did and not in terms of that closing weekend when they made their final statement. Last thing here is going back to what you said about Langston. Ottawa was 17, as I talked about. And this is according to the VS rankings here at the NIA. Langston was 30, and they have a loss to number 11, Texas Wesleyan. So they're right in that mix of trying to put themselves in players. They got to close out strong, but we'll keep an eye on that. And you certainly can check out Brian and AD as they do SportsWrap, where they do really good work in terms of the NCAA Division II and NAIA playoffs. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, particularly on Wednesday with Joshua Sims on HBCU Nightly, you can really get some update information in regards to what they're doing. We're going to get into our first break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll get a chance to really get into some matchups that we told you to keep your eyes on during the week, as we call them here, games of the week. We'll do the mid-major first. We'll get into some major division in the third stretch of the show. And we'll come back and tell you what to get into next week, because it just gets bigger and bigger as you close up the season and get in those championship runs. We got some big games coming up this week. We thought they were big this week, and they were, but now they get bigger. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this first break to get into the second quarter, our second segment. It gets better. Stick with us. Thank you.
Support the Black College Sports Network so we can continue to provide you coverage. Go to myjbn.com/support and be a part of the Black College Sports
Tell everybody
Network.
they can follow their dreams.
Let's get back to getting ticks instead of watching flicks. Before we can safely get out there, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision for yourself and for your crew.
Charmin Ultra Soft has so much cushiony softness, it's hard for your family to remember they can use less.
Sweet pillows of softness.
This is soft.
Holy Charmin. Oh, excuse me. Roll it back, everybody.
Sorry.
Charmin Ultra Soft is so cushiony soft, you'll want more, but it's so absorbent, you can use less, so it's always worth it. Now, what did we learn about using less?
You gotta roll it back, everybody.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
Maureen is saving big holiday shopping at Amazon, so now she's free to become Maureen the Merrier. Food is her love language, and she really loves her grandson. Like, really loves.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We'll get into our mid-matchup. We kind of teased this up, and I said mid-matchup, but the mid-major, if you would. Langston, Oklahoma, W.E. Anderson Stadium, when you get in that Sooner Athletic Conference, Saturday, October 23 o'clock p.m., they got it done. Number 4, Langston, Lions, 6-1. 5-1, defeat Ottawa, Firestorm, 5-2 in terms of their overall record and conference record. In overtime, it was a third comeback victory as they were laying on the ropes. The Lions refused to give it up. They win 44-38. It's a big win. Top 20 win, as I told you. The fact that they all tied now, 3 teams are tied. Well, 2 teams now are tied in the conference record, right? And it puts them in that momentum and shakes off what happened last year when they went on that slide. So I want to go to you, Drew, and just give me some thoughts, some key players in that matchup. What do you think about Langston at number 4 in the mid-major poll, getting it done this week.
Man, it looks like defense was at a premium in this one. Well, I don't know if premium is the word, but 950 yards combined by these two teams. It's kind of interesting that you get a game that's won in overtime, and somebody has to play defense and get a stop in a game where no one seemed to be able to play defense and get a stop. Larry Harrington on the day, 24-41, 387 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Getting it done.
One INT, had a long of 65. So Langston, consistency. They got that one bump in the road. They've got to stay consistent throughout the remainder of the year. They cannot afford any type of mental mistakes going down the stretch.
Good point. Good point. Josh, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. I mean, we talked a little bit about it too this week, Doc. We talked about it on Nightly, and we talked about it again on Thursday night on Inside the Sport HBCU Sports Lab. Like, this Langston team, they're in a really, really big stretch of their season right now. If they're going to make a run, after the loss 2 weeks ago, if they're going to make a run for the playoffs, it started yesterday. They needed to win yesterday. You get a top 20 a win against a top 20 opponent yesterday. And that Langston offense, man, all season long, man, we've seen that Langston offense kind of just click itself away, man. They had maybe one hiccup this season so far. And as I'm continuing to learn more about this Langston football team and learn more about what's going on out there in Oklahoma and how they got that team rolling, I'm very excited to see how the season kind of finishes up for Langston, man. So, as much as I'm learning, I'm liking. As I'm learning, I'm liking what I'm seeing, man. That offense is incredible.
A little bit about Bluefield State. They took a big loss this weekend. Obviously, coaches on the show, and they were playing some good football. Thought they would perform much better, but surprising for a lot of folks. Credit to Allen Yellow Jackets of the SIAC versus the Independent of Bluefield State. They get their first victory of the season. They go from 1-6, 1-5 as they move forward. They defeat Bluefield State, Big Blue, who dropped to 3-3. So they are 50. They were defeated, 50-14. What are your thoughts in terms of that game? They really got going, Allen, in that first quarter.
Yeah, Doc. Honestly, man, from start to finish yesterday in that game, and that's another kind of kudos to the state of South Carolina yesterday, going undefeated in HBCU football yesterday. Allen getting this big W yesterday. Man, the passing game was big. And when we had Coach on HBCU Nightly on Wednesday, he talked about really trying to limit that Allen offense and seeing what they could be able to do. Well, not so fast, my friend. Yesterday was a little ugly. Down in Blythewood, South Carolina yesterday for that game, man. They were right in South Carolina yesterday for that game. So, man, it just was incredible, man. Dante Cook, man, had a great game yesterday. Daniel Plummer, man, the quarterback for Allen University, man, balled out yesterday, man. Over 200 yards passing yesterday and in the first half. So literally, man, you look at what they've been able to do down there, Allen, man. I'm excited to see how they finish. Allen is still a couple years away from really being able to really be able to compete. But Bluefield, man, what can you say, man? That defense just did not hold any water yesterday. And Allen had their way yesterday against them, man. So good win by Allen, but Bluefield, man.
Drew, did you want to jump in there and say anything about that matchup? Good stuff, Joshua. Or do you want to jump into the CIAA matchup?
I would just give a quick one. Was it the Allen defense or the Allen offense that let them down? Not the Allen Bluefield defense or the Bluefield offense. You talk about the defense not being able to do something. When your offense throws 5 interceptions, that's not a formula for victory for both teams. And you're -3 in the turnover column. I mean, I'm just being real. How much can you put on the defense versus the inept offense?
That's a significant point. It's hard to blame everything on your defense when your offense decides not to come to play. Let's get into this CIAA. We'll start with you, Joshua, and then come to you, AD Drew. Raleigh, North Carolina, George William Athletic Complex, Winston-Salem State, Rams, 1-5, as they got into the St. Augustine matchup. What were your thoughts in terms of what went down in that game?
Well, I know my brother Stephen Gaither is gonna love what I'm getting ready to say here. But I called this one, man. I thought that Winston State, Coach Massey had
You
that
did.
squad ready to go, man. I called this one. I felt like State was gonna be able to kind of, continue their route in the capital city of North Carolina and Raleigh, man. And they're 2-0 against both Raleigh CIAA teams. They beat Shaw the week before. They beat St. Aug this week. Next week they got a chance to keep this thing rolling and really finish the season well. They got Fayetteville State in 2 weeks, man. So yesterday the offense, just 30 seconds about this, Doc. Their offense looked more consistent yesterday than I've seen them look all season long. I was very, very impressed with what I saw from the kid Perkins and offense. And the offense just looked good yesterday, man. OC called a really good game yesterday. So I look forward to them being able to take this momentum into Johnson C. Smith next week. They got Johnson C. Smith next week, who was reeling after a homecoming loss yesterday. So I'm looking forward to State being able to kind of finish the season strong, man. Salute to Coach Massey. We didn't get a lot of NCCU wins yesterday, but the nickname for Winston State is North Carolina Central West. So Coach Massey is a North Carolina Central grad. The AD is a North Carolina Central grad. So whenever they win, we win. So we take that.
I love that. So the Rams approved the 2-5. 2-3 in St. Augustine falls to 1-7 and 1-5 when you talk about what they look like on the schedule, Drew. Sometimes you play teams, they help you get right. That's 2 in a row for the Rams.
Yeah, what I'm going to find interesting, I wonder if that game that they will not play for homecoming, I wonder if that would have had an influence on it, because they do have Fayetteville State for the last game of the season. Just curious, because if Fayetteville slips up between now and that last game, that game could have meant something.
Gonna be interesting.
So for the sake of argument, let's hope Fayetteville State does not slip up and have us pundits talking about what if they would have played that game.
I like that. Let's go into Tuskegee Gold Tigers in terms of them. Number 7 coming into the game. They improved to 6-2, 5-0 in the West Division as they defeat number 10 Lane Dragons. They fall to 3-4, 2-2, 35-31. In terms of the scores, competitive matchup, but Tuskegee continues to find a way to get wins under the new coach there. It's amazing what a coach can do to the program, because I'm not sure they're as talented as their record is in terms of that, but they certainly play at a level that justifies the record they have. So sticking with you, AD Drew, what are your thoughts?
It's interesting. Coach Ruffin has been known as a defensive coach his entire career. But the Tuskegee Golden Tigers for the last 5 weeks have put up 30 or more points in 5 of the 6 games in this streak. Here's the problem, though. They've given up 30 points a game also during this streak. So it's real interesting for a coach that's been known for 13-10 victories and things like that to be winning games in a shootout. And I'm gonna let it go to Joshua after that, but I do want to come back and mention something about the playoffs after Joshua gets in his point.
Go ahead.
Yeah, man. Salute to Coach Ruffin, man. This is him just finding a way to continue to keep winning, man. I thought that yesterday was possibly a situation where, we talking about a lane program who has a FCS W on their hands, a major W on their hands against Tennessee State. But man, salute the coach and that staff, man. They find a way to win, man. They've been finding a way to win every week for the last 5 weeks. That sets up for a really big game next week, man. That is a huge, huge game next week for Tuskegee, man.
West.
It's for the West, literally, man. It's for the West. So to see the SIAC really kind of come together, and you talking about as the season gets later, it gets greater for the SIAC, man. These matchups in these last 3 weeks in the SIAC, man, these next 3 weeks is going to be incredible as well. But the last 2 weeks, I'm spoiled, man. I'm spoiled the last 2 weeks, man, just kind of seeing the matchups the last 2 weeks.
Before we get into our Marching Sport halftime break, come back on the third side, let me let AD Drew get in here and talk a little bit about the playoff and get people prepared to understand what may go down as we close out the season. Remember, D2 closes out a week earlier than what you used to that last week playing last couple of weeks in some areas of the FCS. Go ahead, Drew.
And here's the thing, Doc. All the conference races may be closed a week earlier than that, because next week we can have all division races sold up in all of our conference. Virginia Union wins next week, CIAA North is sold up. Fayetteville State wins next week, CIAA South sold up. Benedict wins next week, SIAC East is sold up. Tuskegee wins next week, SIAC West is showed up. Kentucky State beats Tuskegee. We do have to wait an additional week to make it official for Kentucky State. Kentucky State will need one more victory. But here's the thing I wanted to mention about the Super Region 2. Doc, I'm taking a look at the projections. The rankings should come out later on today. But in Super Region 2, Doc, we have 6 of the top 15 in Super Region 2 are HBCUs. Right now, that's projected Benedict at number 2, Virginia Union at number 4, Fort Valley State 6, Albany State 7, Tuskegee 9, Fayetteville State 10. Those teams have realistic shots to getting into the playoffs, depending on how they do, and they all control their own destiny. So even though the division races and conference races may be sold up, these teams will have something to play for in week 10 and week 11 as they try to get into the playoffs and play for seeding.
5 teams still in the mix, top 10 in that region. That's beautiful.
6.
I'm sorry, 6 is
6 in the top 10.
6 of the top 10. Think about that.
HBCU.
HBCU. Beautiful thing. We told you some good football was playing at the Division II level between the CIAA and SIAC. That's just an example of looking at the data points to tell you we know what we're saying there. Shout out to some folks, Noel Price, J. Mack, Kerry Mickens, Mary Allen, Michael Lee, Ricky Burton, G. Boom Holly, Theron Waters, all giving us some love, jumping in here early this morning. Jimmy Wilson, Sarah Beverly. Appreciate y'all getting up and getting your dose of the lab. Emma Price, Anthony Langston, Carter Kelvin. Who else is in here doing it right this morning? Amos Fawcett, see you. Carter, Kelvin. Who else? Anybody else in here before we take this break and get into halftime? I'll shout some of y'all out on the other side. Travis Tyrone Banks, John Richardson, Sarah Beverly, as we said, Reginald Johnson, Karen Griffin. Chuck Hunt is always in the house. Thomas Einstein Maddox. Good job, man. We appreciate y'all getting in here, mixing up, telling us what you think. Willie Bolden, I see you. Lennon Blau is in here. Chris Tucker, Daniel Wiley. Man, y'all deep this morning. I see you. All right, Jerome G. Sutton, Barrett Williams. He had a homecoming. He found a way to get in here. I see what you're doing. Appreciate you getting on up. Herbert Bolden, Clarence Kinney. With that, we'll take our halftime break. We'll be right back on the side. We'll get into the major division where we teased a little bit, but we got some good games. Those independent programs getting wins in their conferences. We'll see what that means as they go down the stretch to make it interesting and see if they can come up on the champion side of things. Stick with us. We'll be right back on the other side looking at the MEAC and SWAC as well.
Your ad could be ran here. MyJBN.com/support. MyJBN.com/support for more information.
The new GMC Sierra with hands-free driving offers the most advanced and luxurious pickup in its class. Yeah, it rocks.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
You wouldn't want to go to the playoffs if it wasn't going to be financially good for Jackson State.
Right.
If it changes to where you guys could have some home games and it would be financially more to go do the playoff, would you rather go do that?
I'd rather, if we have the opportunity, I'd rather play the Celebration Bowl. I'd rather do that.
In Atlanta, at the Celebration Bowl. MEAC versus SWAC. Champion versus champion. Only one team will rise above the rest and claim the coveted Celebration Bowl trophy. Come join the celebration at Mercedes-Benz Stadium this December.
Dr. Cavil's inside the HBCU Sports Lab. You heard it. I'd rather go to the Celebration Bowl. It's about the Celebration Bowl when you talk about the MEAC and SWAC in terms of champion against the champion. And we'll get into that for the MEAC and the SWAC. But let's talk about some of these independent programs whose desire is to win the conference, obviously, which means you get a bid to the playoffs. Starting with Tennessee State. Yes, they started off 0-4, but they rolling now 3 straight and even had the bottom of the pit when they thought they lost the lane, but they've risen. And now they've gotten 2 conference wins, doing what they're supposed to do with teams that are not playing well, but they are playing better, getting a chance to maybe to set up for a showdown, not next week when they play Murray State that's 0-6, 0-7, but the following week it gets interesting. But they got it done as they defeated Eastern Illinois 37-17. So the Tigers improved to 3-4, 2-0 in OVC. Eastern Illinois, the Panthers, fall to 2-5 and 1-2 in the OVC. 80 Drew, any thoughts on this matchup?
Dominating performance by Tennessee State as they literally doubled up Eastern Illinois there on this Saturday. And maybe that lane game was a wake-up call to them and made them refocus going into conference play.
I like that. And they got healthier, Josh.
Yeah. I mean, they are definitely back healthy. Draylon Edwards is back. Draylon Edwards is back being consistent. That quarterback position has now been shored up because he's back healthy. The running game is back shored up because he's healthy, because their starting running back is healthy as well. So expect them to play big next week against Murray State and make it interesting in the OVC, man. If we get Tennessee State in there, man, that'd be big, man, to have another HBCU in the FCS playoffs.
You know they'll play A&T in the first round if it happens. I just want to throw that out there. They're going to get rid of one of y'all.
Jeez, man.
Speaking of A&T, Joshua, I know you can't say the school down the top, but we can. North Carolina A&T. That's number 10, North Carolina A&T State Aggies. They improved to 4-3, 2-0. Do what you're supposed to do to a winless Robert Morris Colonials that fall to 0-7, and that's 0-3 in the conference race. To defeat them, really beat up all them throughout the game and got jumped on them early, 38-14. They basically show up a big game next week against Campbell, which we'll talk about a little later in the show in the SWAC type of matchup. They got it done there. But what are your thoughts in terms of the Aggies getting it done against Robert Morris?
Yeah, Doc. Doc. The school down the highway looked consistent yesterday, man. For everybody who knows, I can never say those 2 letters in that acronym in between, that little symbol in between. But listen, man, the school down the highway looked good yesterday. Good win against a Robert Morris team. That's what you're supposed to do. You kill a gnat with a sledgehammer, kill an ant with an axe, and they did that yesterday. It absolutely sets up for a big game this week versus Campbell for the school down the highway. And they little homecoming. They got their little homecoming festivities in East Greensboro this week too.
I like it. Let's go to you, 80 Drew. Your thoughts?
You really want me to break down a game where A&T beat Robert Morris, who lost to Delaware State, the same Delaware State that lost to Howard. You want me to waste time on that anymore?
You just said enough. I like it.
Okay.
Let's go back to Joshua. And we talked about this at the break as you succeeding some of your time to Joshua because he wanted to go in a little bit from a coaching perspective to really get you inside understanding a little more of what took place in this matchup other than obviously South Carolina State Bulldogs getting it done that improved to 3-4, 1-0 in the MEAC, defeating number 2 North Carolina Central Eagles 5-2 as they fall to 1-1 in the conference 26-24. Take it away, Josh.
Absolutely. So when you look at games like this, man, this was a consummate ball game. This was an old school kind of ball game where we're going to punch you in the mouth. We're going to see if you can punch us back in the mouth and see what happens, man. In the first quarter yesterday, you saw North Carolina Central defense really kind of shore up and really stop the run, man. You look at the box score yesterday, we really stopped the run throughout the entire game. And really had a chance in the first quarter to really go and jump out and do what we need to do. But offensively yesterday, North Carolina Central in the first quarter came out a little stagnant. As you get to the second quarter, you start to see our offense kind of start to move a little bit, but you start to see South Carolina State's offense move a little bit as well. And they fired up number 1, Shaq Davis, yesterday in the second quarter. They fired him up. Yesterday, and I'm going to say this, man, this kid is incredible. We talking about, I mean, literally, man, he's a redshirt sophomore. If there are not any NFL scouts, and Doc, I know you don't watch the games on Sunday, but if there aren't any NFL scouts who are making their way down to Orangeburg, South Carolina, let this be a warning and an opportunity for me to tell you, you need to make your way down to Orangeburg, South Carolina, and go get eyes on this kid. He is incredible. All of their touchdowns yesterday versus North Carolina Central in our defense came by way of Shaq Davis. Whether it was intentional or unintentional, whether it was because we wanted him to shine or he just wanted to shine on himself. One of the touchdowns he had, they called one of his touchdowns back. He broke for 60-some yards yesterday, and they called that one back. But a couple data points yesterday. Our offensive rushing game yesterday, we're known for our kind of our balance. Davis Ritchie yesterday, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing to 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception yesterday. But our running game was what was big yesterday. And on the last real drive, what I consider to be the last real drive of the game, once your back is against the wall, you inside the 20, and you're trying to drive to go get in field goal position. I don't consider that the last real drive. In the last real drive of the game, we drove 80-plus yards. All of our plays, except for one, was a running play. The one play we decided to throw the ball, we threw an interception. Kudos to South Carolina State for making a play yesterday. But just my only coaching point yesterday is, and for other teams that's got to play against Shaq Davis, go cloud against this guy, man. Put somebody underneath. Let those backers play in inside of space, and then let your safety over the top really be able to play. You can play a combo coverage, split the field in half. You can go man on the other side because it's not like the other receivers. No disrespect to the other receivers, but they ain't number 1. They
not Shaq.
They not Shaq. And you have to realize that. Cut the field in half wherever he's at, or put your best defender on him, and let's play off man and let him beat you in hitch routes or something, man. But deep balls, there's no reason in the world for you to be getting beat on post routes, deep balls, jump balls, fades. There's no reason in the world you let Shaq Davis beat you with fades. And this is another team, my alma mater is another team that fell victim to Shaq Davis just being a man amongst boys. And that's all I got about it, Doc.
Man, that was broke down sweet.
One follow-up on that to make your point even better, Joshua. South Carolina State had 21 receptions. Shaq Davis had 6. Kendrell Flowers out the backfield had 4. So that's half their doggone reception. So, like you said, double Shaq, put a man following Kendrell out the backfield, and let everybody else beat you.
Yeah, beat me with somebody else.
Right. And I know it's not over, but just to talk about matchups, we would have got excited with a North Carolina Central matchup because you talking about if they would have won this, they would have came in that game, Celebration Bowl, potentially 8-3, 9-2. So they would have been playing well in terms of what they could get done against Jackson State if they can roll it out. But now you put into play South Carolina State, Shaq Davis. How about this against Travis Hunter in terms of what that matchup may look like. Freshmen against in terms of a lot to be played. I know Southern's out there saying, hey, man, we got a matchup this weekend. Slow down. It's a championship game. You got Prairie out there saying, watch out. You got FAMU sneaking the back door. Alabama A&M only has one loss, and they still have Jack State on the schedule. So a lot to be played, but I'm just saying as you get in and get excited, there's going to be some matchups to keep your eyes on in the Celebration Bowl. And that's if South Carolina State doesn't find a way to choke it up, if you would, and lose 2 games, and Central State is back in the mix. It only takes one to make it become close down the stretch. Yeah, just 4 more games, not a lot of room for error. It'll be interesting. Talking about that a little bit, we'll stretch this out, and then we'll come back and tell you some games to watch out. Obviously, you've heard about what I call Upset Saturday. That was Howard getting it done at homecoming against Delaware State, really taking care of that game from the outstreet. They scored on the first drive, pull away from Delaware State, and get it done in so many different ways. So that was fascinating when you talk about what happened there in terms of that matchup in that game. Howard wins 35-17. You also have the upset we just talked about in terms of South Carolina State over Delaware State. And then I wanted to give some credit to Texas Southern. Second homecoming victory they got done against Alcorn State. The Braves, talking about already, they defeat them 34-27. The Braves scored late as they actually had a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter where they end up trying to do an onside kick after they scored late, but it was all but done. And credit to the Tigers that are rolling and saying, hey, we got 4 teams in the mix for the Western Division in terms of what this looked like going down the stretch. So that's some games to keep your eyes on. I did want to talk about Jackson State getting it done. Number 1 team, Jackson State Tigers, 7-0, 4-0, defeat Campbell's 4-3 as they fall to 2-1 as they have a big matchup next week. That was a 22-14. Jackson State scored late in that game. It looked like they pulled away. Campbell takes it all the way down, scores with less than minutes on the clock. You have an onside kick that didn't go their way. That was really the end of the game. It was interesting, that game, because you look at the stats, and Jackson State dominated in that game. But they've had this capacity over this year to really not be able to get it done in terms of the red zone scoring. They get down in the 10, and they've done everything. Interceptions, fumbles, turnover on downs. And this is another one of those games. So that's a trend that's going to be fascinating to see. They're so talented that it hasn't hurt them in terms of winning games, just involved with what their defense is. So I wanted to share a little bit about that in terms of getting some of those facts out there. Last one, Bethune-Cookman Wildcat gets off the mat 2-5, 2-2, and they go to Mississippi Valley State. We talked about how challenging it is. And it was like that. I was like, Valley scored on the first touchdown going away, and it looks like they were going to get that proverbial 14 points that we talked about it so hard down there. And then a 97-yard pick six puts Bethune-Cookman back in the game, and then in the second half, it explodes for points. It's 45-35. You're like, what happened?
Did you see the back-to-back kickoff returns, Doc?
Yes, back-to-back kickoff returns. So
one for 91, one for 94.
We told everybody, look at the delta. It goes down there and strange things happen, and it happened. Unfortunately for Delta Devils, they could not get the win. They fall to 0-7, 0-5, but they keep pushing forward in that matchup. Let's get into our last break. We'll come back on the other side and start talking about some of the games that you want to think about this weekend. Obviously told you 1 or 2 of them throughout the show. We'll make it official and get these 2 guys' thoughts on what is taking place next weekend. In week number 9, boy, it is moving past. We're past midterms, and we're starting to get into final exam time. What is happening to the football season? Stick with us. We'll be right back on the other side, giving you some highlights in terms of what to think about this week as it just gets tremendously exciting in terms of what happens down the stretch in these conference races. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
worry, Ma. We'll be there soon.
We? Is this the one?
Well, let's say I found the one who takes me to another level. Always stays calm under pressure. Most importantly, the one that helps me discover the coolest places.
This sounds wonderful.
Come outside, I'll introduce you.
You're here.
Definitely the one.
Introducing the all-new Nissan Frontier.
At CDW, we get speed as the new currency of success.
Our team spends way too much time tending to outdated applications and software when they should be focused on driving application agility and innovation.
CDW Amplified Development Services modernizes software and application development to help accelerate innovation and digital transformation.
So you mean building new applications, UI, and mobile interfaces?
Well, you said you needed to innovate more quickly.
Oh, so he's a listener.
To do more at scale, trust CDW Amplified Development Services.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Joshua Sims and AD Drew. I started to say Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. They're out on assignment or recovering, at least one of them from homecoming. The other one is probably prepping for his homecoming to come, because if you know anything about Mike, he starts early. So no telling what's going on. And then BJ Jones, he was down on the bluff, or at least he tried to say it wasn't him, it was somebody else. He recovered as well. So we're going to leave that alone. We'll let him explain that on Tuesday. Eric regards to his Top 5 Tuesday. Get ready for his Twitter Spaces as he does. And Joshua is getting it done, coming and facing the music. So I appreciate that in terms of how you get it. We're going to get into some top matchups this weekend. It gets good in week number 9. Let's start in the MEAC. What is your top matchup in the MEAC this week, Joshua Sims?
Man, it's a tie. North Carolina Central, we have to go on the road to Dover, Delaware. Both of us reeling after a loss. Both of us was in the top 5, after having impressive wins the week prior to. So that game, and then I'm going to be honest, Doc, that South Carolina State-Morgan State game. Morgan State has some big DBs. Will they be able to put together a strategy to stop? Because if you can stop the run against South Carolina State, you can be able to kind of make them one-dimensional. So that Morgan State-South Carolina State game is equally as important to me as North Carolina Central-Dale State game. And just one quick point, because we only lost by 2 yesterday to South Carolina State, if they lose to anybody else in the conference, we get the opportunity to go to the Celebration Bowl just as long as we beat. If they lose to Morgan State next week, we get a chance to go back to the Celebration Bowl because we beat Morgan State by 30-plus points. So that's going to be an opportunity. I look forward to it. I hope that that's how it goes down. But if not, it is what it is.
Don't you have the head-to-head tiebreaker first?
We do. So we have the head-to-head tie. So the only way we'll have a head-to-head tiebreaker is the Morgan State game. We lost by 2 to them. They lost to A&T. We beat A&T.
You're talking about in a three-way.
In a three-way.
No,
and
you're talking about a three-way. I got you.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I forgot about the three-way tiebreaker. I was thinking about 2.
Yeah.
Nice one. Nice thing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Stretch it all the way out. Stretch it all the way
Stretch
out.
the whole
Wouldn't that be so Miakish? Wouldn't that be so Miakish, though?
Man, so Miakish, man.
AD Drew, any thoughts, any game that you want to keep your eyes on in terms of the
MEAC? I mean, I'm looking for SC State, Morgan State. I really expect Central to take care of business. The Howard Norfolk State is a throwaway game. You contractually obligated to let those 2 teams play. Let them go ahead and play.
Contractual obligation.
The big one in the SWAC, everybody's going to be tuning to, obviously, Southern and Jackson State. This is interesting to me. And
yes,
while Jackson State is 7-0, 5-2 in regards over all records, Southern is 3-1. Obviously, you see how tight the race is in the West with PV being in 3-1. Southern has the head-to-head tiebreaker there. But Texas Southern is 3-2. They've beaten Southern, but they've lost to Prairie View. And they've beaten Alcorn that sits at 2-2. Alcorn has lost to Southern and now lost to Texas Southern. They do have Prairie View coming up in a couple of weeks, so it's fascinating there. On the other side in the East, you have Jackson State 4-0, FAMU 3-1, Alabama A&M 3-1 that are all in the race. And technically, you might look a little bit at Alabama State, Bethune-Cookman with 2 losses. Big gap there, but certainly between those top 3. And you had Jackson State that beat FAMU. Obviously, A&M and Jackson State have not played, so that's one to keep your eyes on. But if you start thinking about championship games, this game is important, obviously, to keep moving and putting yourself in positions to be in the championship game. But if it falls right in such a way and Southern defeats Jackson State, right, that means if those 2 teams come out of the division, they have the same record, the championship game would be in Baton Rouge on the bluff because they would have the head-to-head tiebreaker. Think about that for a minute in craziness. Jackson State wants to continue to win so they can host another championship game. But you just have state bragging rights in terms of what this looks like. And so it's fascinating. But I thought I'd tease that out there as we start to looking forward. Could you imagine how much is on the table of getting it done? And Southern doesn't have any room for error since they already have that one loss. Any thoughts from you, Joshua, on this matchup?
Yeah, the conversation has already started, Doc, about this game possibly being the game that will derail the train that is Jackson State, man. I'm hearing that there's going to be a bigger crowd in Mississippi Veteran Memorial Stadium this Saturday coming than it was yesterday for homecoming. And so you mix that with the fireworks that is Southern versus Jackson State anyway, and a little bit of inconsistency on the offensive side of the ball yesterday for Jackson State. First time we've seen it all season. A Southern defense that, they struggled a little bit early, to dominate Virginia Lynchburg yesterday. You got that coming into Mississippi Veteran Memorial Stadium next week. Doc, this is prime time football. No pun intended to Coach Prime, but this is marquee matchup that we have been waiting for all season long. We hoped that it would be like this. We, honestly would have hoped that Southern wouldn't have had that stumble against Texas Southern, because this game would have been even bigger. But if we looking at this, Doc, this is going to be a matchup between those 2 defenses and a slugfest that we haven't seen in the SWAC all season long. This is going to be a punch and then get punched back. Let's see what happens. And whatever offense, in my opinion, has the ball last, that's who I think ends up winning this game, Doc.
Good one. Drew, any thoughts you want to share on this matchup?
I guess everybody just forgot that this is the Boombox Classic. The hell with the bands for this matchup. I at least thought you was gonna get to put that out there, Doc, considering that you won the band poll. Forget to match up on the football field. This is for number 1 in your poll, Dr. Cavil. This is a head-to-head matchup in the Boombox Classic. Let's not let that slide by. Two other quick ones I want to say. Did everybody forget that it's Magic City Classic weekend also?
No, we're gonna get there. But go ahead and start there. Go ahead.
It's Alabama A&M. 1 loss. They need to get this win just to make that game in Mobile. And I believe that's in 2 weeks. I believe the game in Mobile is to make that game relevant. Because Jackson State win or lose, that game becomes relevant if Alabama A&M wins. Because if Jackson State loses, obviously that's going to be to control the East. If Jackson State wins, that's going to be so they can have a tiebreaker and still be in control of these Alabama A&M. And last game, Arkansas Pine Bluff. First game without the head coach, Doc Gamble.
Doc Gamble, yeah. It's easy to let go.
And how do you open up, Mr. Interim Coach? You just got to come to Tallahassee where we brag better and we brag different, especially on homecoming.
Jeez, Louise.
Yeah, during the break, Joshua, you talked about homecoming and how many losses have taken place this year. Think about the games that are homecoming this year. This is homecoming for Delaware State. As they host North Carolina Central.
The nerve, the audacity.
Here y'all go with these homecomings, man. Hey, it happens sometimes. The schedules are rough. But I just be like, man, y'all don't play with these folks. Then you got Pine Bluff going to FAMU with a new coach. That's FAMU's homecoming. You have Campbell going for their second consecutive HBCU experience homecoming as they go to A&T, what they call G-Hope, the greatest homecoming on earth out there. Plug that. Then you have Bethune-Cookman taking their far trip to Texas as they play Prairie View. Prairie View's homecoming. You got Lincoln coming all the way out from California Division II program to play Texas Southern for their homecoming. So a lot of homecomings. We'll see who gets the W, who gets the L in terms of their homecoming. Another one I want to throw out here is Alcorn traveling to Grambling. That's 2 straight losses for the Braves. They always have trouble in Grambling. Grambling has the week off. They're looking and they're trending, playing better, more consistently. This is one to keep your eyes on in regards, can the Braves get right or Grambling get their first conference victory of the year? Fascinating to kind of watch that.
Alcorn lose another game. Alcorn lose another game. I might have to do a wellness check on guest of the Sports Wrap, Kelvin Carter, see if he's going to be all right, because that would be 3 in a row for Alcorn. So I'm prepared to do a wellness check for you, Kelvin, if they lose another one.
Exactly. You need to tell him to make sure he keeps Texas Southern off the schedule for homecoming in regards to what it is. You know, Texas Southern don't treat homecoming like they used to. They a little upset about it. So I'll listen to Kelvin tonight and see what he has to say, because I know he's not feeling it in regards to what happened to his Braves for homecoming. It's tough in the SWAC. I want to go to you, Drew, for some of your last comments there in regards to any mid-major games that we need to keep eyes on. I think we talked about it a little bit in terms of Tuskegee and Kentucky State in Frankfurt. That's basically for the West of the SIAC for all practical purposes. Obviously, the technical things can happen depending who wins the game, but I know there's one you want to keep your eyes on. Any other one out there that we should keep our eyes on? I think you talked about teams being able to clinch, essentially. What are those other 3 games that people need to watch that possibly where Virginia Union, Benedict, Fayetteville State can potentially clinch their way into their respective conference championship games?
Hey, Fayetteville State, Shaw is one you definitely want to keep your eye on. Shaw has played themselves out of the race. They cannot win it, but they can definitely mess up Fayetteville State's playoff positioning, as Fayetteville State pretty much has locked up the CIAA South. Virginia Union Shawan, that's going to be one interesting one to keep an eye on up there in Richmond, Virginia.
Great point.
That's senior day for Virginia Union. So Virginia Union trying to remain undefeated in the season and in and in Division II. Benedict travels to Benedict is at home for homecoming, my brother. So Benedict has Clark Atlanta, a Clark Atlanta team that could be sneaky. Which Clark Atlanta team will show up? That has always been the question with them this season as they look for consistency under Coach Willie Slater. But 2 other games I want you to keep an eye on. Neutral site matchup, Savannah State, Fort Valley State in Macon, Georgia. Fort Valley needs to keep their winning ways going to set up the Fountain City Classic, not only to be something for the playoffs, for them, as if Benedict wins, their chances of winning the East is over. And the other half of the Fountain City Classic is Morehouse traveling to Albany State. So that's the other half of that. We want that Fountain City Classic may be the only mid-major game that could be significant in Week 10 if everybody handles their business.
Man, I love it. Way to close. Any final statement you want to make, Josh?
No, man, it's just another great week of HBCU football, man. We've had action-packed games every single week this season, and this week will not show any up short. This is another big-time week, so looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to seeing the squad. Just, we got to bounce back as a North Carolina Central fan. But 1801 Fairwood Street rolls into Dover, Delaware for their homecoming this week, so we looking to make a statement.
Check out Joshua Sims as he continues to join us on Sundays to give you a wrap-up We'll do it next week. I'll probably be somewhere around Prairie View for homecoming to make sure we can bring you a show, give you upsets in terms of what's going on there. I'm going to find out to make sure I take care of myself so I don't get myself in trouble like BJ Jones this week or Mike Watch or Charles Bishop. I'll find a way to make sure we can deliver the show. So it won't be on me. We'll find it. Just make sure I can find some internet. We'll get it done. With that being said, shout out to everybody there. Jimmy says, who's on HBCU Go TV this week? We certainly will let you know during our Tuesday and Thursday show some of those key matchups and where they will be and where you can see them. Great point. Should be a good one. They might be traveling back down to the FAMU, if I'm not mistaken, for their homecoming.
That is on HBCU Go, I believe.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yes.
And so we will get you there. Cedric Myers is checking it out. Congratulations on the homecoming win. Jackson State, previous Houston area president, big time supporter of Jackson State there in terms of that. Omega man as well. Won't say that too loud on the show, but give him a little love there. With that being said, appreciate everybody. Joshua Sims on Wednesday on his Twitter. It's HBCU Nightly. BJ Jones, who's a regular here, and we may have some tease out some things in the work to get them going to provide you some inside HBCU behind the scene coaching perspectives of these HBCU games. We might even try to sneak that out before the end of the season. We'll keep your eyes on that, but you can check him out now on Tuesday as he does his top Tuesday, if you would, as he gets it done, as well as catch him on the Twitter Spaces that night. AD Drew, Brian and AD of the SportsWrap. Check them out tonight as they take a deep dive in terms of HBCU sporting world, your games of the week, and the latest news as well. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyattaCavil. That's DrKenyattaCavil. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Joshua?
Class dismissed. Appreciate you, Doc.
Yeah.